Okay, good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Jody. I am an Academic Instructional Support Specialist, and we have a new Academic Instructional Support Specialist with us, Bob Staples, who has been teaching and mentoring with eCore for a very long time, has now come on full-time, and he is going to be hosting today's webinar. He's very knowledgeable. He can answer probably any of your questions. So without further ado, Bob, if you would like to take over. If you need anything, just give me a holler.
All right, thank you, Jody. Welcome, folks, to our webinar. We're calling it the Top 10 Getting Started. A couple things I want to mention before we get through the slides. We'll probably be having some people come in, and I understand that. Appreciate your patience. If you want to, write something with the chat, you could pull that window out to the side and elongate it, and that helps some people. As we go through the slides, what I may do is at the bottom of the slide, I will pause for about 5 seconds, and that's someone wants to, ask a question on that before we move on. If not, I'll move on. And then at the end, I'll take some questions, and hopefully that will wrap up well. So please be mindful about that. And if you're joining us late, if you have a phone dial-in, if you would hit mute, that would help us to not hear your background noise. Well, let's get started. My name is Bob Staples, and I'm working with Jody in the effort here to support the faculty of eCore and eMajor. All right. A couple things that I want to talk about in what we call the top 10 is when we're working with our students, and again, these may be reminders, and these may be things that you are hearing for the first time. And as a student who, or somebody who has heard these presentations, I realized I wasn't listening to something when I needed to listen, so I just learned to just listen well the first time. And you're probably ahead of me on that curve. So, okay. So number one, when we're working with our students, we need to be personable. Education is a person-oriented operation. And so a couple reminders here is address the students individually on the discussion board and call them by their preferred name. Now, what I do in taking care of this, I fill out a card at the beginning of the semester with, as a minimum, the person's last name and their first name, and they will tell what their first name is when they introduce themselves in the introduction discussion. So I just wanted you to know that. And I fill out a card for each person as a reminder to me that these are individuals with different situations. And sometimes I write notes on them to help me distinguish them. And it does help when you're trying to work with your students. So let's be personable. And like the rubber band says, we need to try to be flexible with our students. Obviously, we're flexible with our students in the face-to-face to a certain degree, but this is more important online, as many of you know. But one of the reasons is because people are choosing this format of learning because it could fit into their busy lives, and that's really a very, very neat thing. Let me give you an example on recognizing students' obligations. Just last night, I had a student say, I'm going to take a trip out of the country January 12th to the 16th. And rather than me say, okay, have fun, what I did is I said to the person, look, you have the calendar, you know what you got to do, so please try to get caught up before you leave, and that way you could come back and get into the class. And the reason why I did that is I wanted the student to know we are flexible with you, but we don't want you to get behind. And concerning technological abnormalities, that's a fancy way of saying sometimes a student loses a connection, or let's be quite honest, they don't have the internet connection they really need to be able to do the course. And so we do have to try to be a little patient with that. But I remind them to go to the information at the home page to correct any issues that they have, and most will. So we want to talk a little bit about being flexible. Okay, we want to talk about being in communication. I like to tell everybody I know there's 3 problems to any organization: communication, communication, and communication. And I have found, working with eCore for, this is about the 3rd year, that whereas I assume the student in the class understands what I'm saying, even with an expression on my face, I have to talk a little differently when I'm communicating with them, and I email them a lot, and that helps. And also on that card, I will put down a phone number for my students. You can find those phone numbers if you'll go to the mandatory quiz that they take, and that is one of the items they have to fill in. That is a helpful thing. And you'll see for a few students that are having difficulty toward the end of the course, contacting and you having contacted them before is really a big deal, and it's very helpful. So I wanted you to know that as well. The second item here about maintaining a reasonable turnaround time. Of course, emails and calls we want to do quicker, but sort of like an upper limit for the grades would be a week. And you can find that information in the MOU. So before we move on, questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any hands raised, and again, you feel free to just hit that talk button and ask, and we will have questions at the end. Let me continue. Be available. Obviously, we want to be available for our students in the face-to-face classes, but I found this to be very important for the online classes. And so maintaining the virtual office hours in 2 hours a week, I will, let me just say what I think is very helpful. I have my office hours 7 to 9 on Monday, and I needed to change it one time for some reason, and it threw some of my students off, and I only changed it a half an hour. What that tells me is the students want a place that they could go at a certain time to ask questions and to resolve any issues. So I want to commend the faculty because Ms. Jody and I have looked at and seen a lot of really good work on the posting of the office hours, and I think that's going to be outstanding, and I think you're going to do very, very well. So being available, obviously, as a faculty member is important. I want to talk about student success and these resources that are available, what I call in your class. There's embedded tutors for the STEM classes, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And then for the non-STEM, you have your embedded librarians. So those are good things, and hopefully you saw them in your class list. Smart Thinking is an avenue where the students can go to, and they're going to see this button on the upper right-hand side of their screen, and this is where they can link into a tutoring service outside of eCore that has been provided for the students. Now, let me just, kind of cut it to the quick in my personal experience. For the math students, they really do need a math tutor because some of my students are really not ready. And that math tutoring is essential. Also, the Smart Thinking, some of my students have really enjoyed it, but it's kind of like when you're young going on a date. You got to do that first date. And what I do is I encourage my students to go to a tutoring by, let's say, the end of the second week, just to see how to go and achieve that help when they need it. And that helps a lot later when they want to go on a second date. Now, if you'll notice at the bottom, I have a YouTube video here that you could use to be able to send a link. It's a video explaining YouTube and how students can use that service and how to log on and that sort of thing. So that's kind of like the friend setting up the date, and I really want to encourage you to use that because it is helpful. Okay, questions on that? All right. Now, when we're talking about resources, we know that many of our students are going to need help to get through the rest of the course. And I have found from personal experience when they got the help, it made all the difference to them in the world. I tutor my students online. I reach out to them. I have conferences. But these other two ways are also very helpful to the students. So we have what's called the Student Success Advisors. And so, again, coming in, getting help, getting set up, and coordinating the smart thinking, that's Brett Miles. And there's her email below. Maybe you can't see it. Let me move this up here. Okay, so that's Brett Miles. And another type of resources where we are reaching out to the students, and this is related to the SEEDS, where we're trying to work with at-risk students, and we're trying to get the student to use the embedded tutor and communicate that way, and that's Jalila Fowler, and so there's her email address for you. So there's some information there you may want to note and be able to use when you need it. Okay. I have found that over a period of years, I moved into the role of mentoring faculty, and this is at the University of West Georgia. And I'll be honest, though, I wasn't really paid for that. But the reason why I did it is because I knew it was a great need. And so whether it's someone that's experienced moving into eCore and teaching using this platform for the first time, or maybe just someone that's new to teaching, this is very important role, and I will have to say the faculty know when they're supported and faculty know when they're not supported. And we are a team of folks that want to support your good efforts because we want all of our students to be successful. Okay, I know that makes sense, and after all, the students is why we're in this business in the first place. So there's two things that I want to point out to you here. On the left side, Jody and I are what we call your faculty support. You know, that's your front line here. We will work at answering your questions. We work to try to point things out to you and to be able to provide some resources to help you out. Let me put that another way. When I teach math and a student gets stuck, they get very frustrated, and until they get over that little block, whatever it is, they are almost just, they're not moving forward. And so I have to reach out, and somebody has to reach out and help them. And the same thing is true for a good faculty member. We want to know that we are here for you, and we'll do our very best as we invested in your success working with your students. Okay. I do want to mention a little bit about the instructional designers. You may have a question about your particular course, and so it may be more detailed than Jody and I can handle. And so I do want you to know that here are names of people that take care of the different courses that we could direct your question to, or you could direct a question to. And I do want you to know that. So please keep that in mind. Okay. I want to talk for a moment about eCore beyond the classroom. So Planet eCore, it's my understanding, I'm not knowledgeable in this like I need to be, but it's a blog about eCore. And that is something that's available to, maybe Jody could talk about that if we have a question at the end. But that's another resource. Probably the most important thing to point out to you here is what we call the Garden of eCore. The whole idea of the garden and the trees and growing is because we want our students to grow and to get the things that they need in order to be successful in life. And for the faculty, we want a place for you to go to. And so in your Garden of eCore, which is it looks like a course on your home page, and maybe under training or non-semester, but there are things that are available to you. The seminar yard, the discussion, seeds of knowledge. These are some things we'd like you to explore, and I wanted you to know about that. Okay. Question or comment so far? Okay. I'm going to be really worried at the end if I don't have some questions at the end. All right. I want to talk for a moment about maintaining an accurate gradebook. All right, so whether we're using D2L or CourseDen or whatever we're using, even if you are using a spreadsheet to do your grades, we want you to use the gradebook in eCore. And it operates just like CoreSten. And so setting up the grades, a lot of your gradebooks are almost set up for you ahead of time, and that's a big help for you. A couple reminders about the gradebook. We have it set up to where there's an ungraded item that grade is dropped, and that's important to keep in mind. We also want to all be reminded that our syllabus needs to match the percentages that we have in the categories in our gradebook, and that's obvious. And also a point about the MOU, and it's talking about a reminder about why we need to kind of keep up with making sure the students know their grade. For me in my classes, I update my grades all of the time, and my students know what their grade is. I know professors are a little bit different on that, but this item here is the bare minimum, and it's important to keep in mind. Sometimes students don't do an assignment, and later on at the end of the semester, or even after that, there's a question about the grade, and it could all go back to we forgot to put a 0 in for a grade that a student did, and so they thought they were fine. But at the end of the semester, we went through our gradebook and put 0s in there, and then there was a problem. So just remember, if you leave it blank, it's not counting. If you put they did not do the work, you place a 0 in there. We just recently had someone that only had 1 or 2 assignments in a category and left it blank, assuming that it was going to work out, and it created a problem. So that's important to keep in mind. We want you to know about keeping an accurate gradebook. And from experience, I will say the more I paid attention to the gradebook, the less problems that I had as we go through finishing up the semester. Okay, I see some questions being answered in the chat, and that's really, really helpful. Appreciate Jody doing it. On our final calculated grade, we want to make sure that our grades are up to date. And if you have a question about your grades, when you go to your gradebook, you see the settings, and that'll be a way for you to make sure that what you wanted to happen as far as it being set up is what is happening. I would do that at the beginning rather than the end. Here's one particular example. Under your personal display option, please make sure that we have these 2 items checked. Points grade, weighted grade. That's just a reminder if you need it. Let me go back here for a second. One thing I do want to make sure that all the faculty understands. You may be teaching a class and you use a point system, and then your grade is the student's total points earned over the total points that were given. eCore is using a weighted grading system. And if there's a question about that, or you want to know more about that, please contact us, and we'd be happy to work with you. Okay, regarding the testing policies and procedures. Now, folks, we are like 1 or 2 slides away from the end of this short top 10 presentation, but this is an important item, and I want to point out a few things. eCore and E major, I'm believing this is right, Jody, operates on what we call the rule of 1. And so what this means is we want at least 1 proctored exam. Now, most of us have a midterm and a final exam, so we understand that. And I will say for math, it's both, and there's a pretty serious weight on that. For us in math, we want to make sure our students did the work and understood the material, and the proctored pathway is the major way we do it. And so that's why we do what we do there. But for many of you, the midterm is the one that's proctored, and then the final exam is up to you. So eCore, rule of 1. Number 2, the proctored exam is an experience that some students are ready for and some are not. And I know that as a faculty member, you want to, when you do the grading, I gave my students every opportunity to study. And so we want to have maybe some example questions, some sample problems, and some may have a study guide, and some conduct review sessions. I do all of these with my students, and sometimes if I'm giving them sample problems on a study guide, I will actually make a video going over those problems. Now, I may overdo it in that area, but I do know one thing: the students need to have no big surprises when they come to their proctored exam. That would not be a good thing. Having said that, I want to make sure we all get the message. We're not asking for the class to not have rigor and for the assessment not to be connected with the measure of student attaining the knowledge, because we want them to know what they know, to do what they need to do later on. Number 3 here, syllabus information. Just make sure that we have this down about the procedure for the final exam that's listed in your syllabus, and then how to schedule. We may want to send out a reminder maybe next week or the following week to sign up for the final exam or the midterm, and we'll need to get our proctored exam set up before the students can register, so we probably need to send out a reminder about that. Number 4 here, if you want to learn more about the USG language about the proctored exam and the procedures, you could use that link to get some more information. Let me pause here. Questions or comments on up to where we are right now? Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd like to know if we have to grade the proctored exam.
Oh, how we get the grades?
Well, I'm teaching music appreciation, and most of the questions are multiple choice, but some of them they ask the student to write a short essay. Does that mean we have to go and grade those individual sections?
That is a very good question. I do believe on the short essay part there will be a need to grade those. Mm-hmm. I'm going to see if Jody can answer a question on that. So, yes. Jody?
I'm not sure why they set the proctored exam like that. It's kind of unusual, but...
Hi, Dr. Mansouriadab. This is Jody. Yes, the proctored midterm, the multiple choice or true-false questions are auto-graded, but absolutely, if there are short essays or fill-ins or anything like that, that does have to be graded by hand. Also, this is one of the reasons we encourage, if you are in a course that only requires one proctored exam, like Mr. Staples was saying that math requires both a proctored midterm and final, which I believe the STEM courses do, or at least all math does. Some of the courses do not. I don't want to get into which courses require what because I don't want to confuse anyone. However, in the case like music, this is why we encourage as many people as possible to make the proctored exam the midterm and not the final. And that way you have a little bit of time to grade any kind of, short essays or whatever needs to be graded, but also we can try to catch up or catch anyone that may have missed the exam or if anything unfortunately were to go wrong.
Yes.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I also wanted to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Another question. Can we change the grading system to point system instead of weight system?
Yes, we would like for you to either contact us or go through your instructional designer to do that because we can't have you change the weight of individual categories or items. But you can look at it from the points view as opposed to the weighted viewpoint. That's fine, but we can't have any of the categories or the items actually changed in weight.
Yes.
Okay, sure. And I just wanted to share really quickly. Please do not be alarmed if you have joined us from eMajor. eMajor does not require proctored exams. Okay, so that really is eCore only, which is why we kept the slide with eCore. So we apologize. We're trying to accommodate both sides of eCampus, but eMajor does not require proctored exams. So for those of you who might be teaching eMajor, please don't worry about that. Anybody teaching eCore, just as a refresher, yes, you must require one proctored experience for all classes. Some classes have an additional requirement. For example, the STEM courses require both, but then also communications, for example, requires a proctored final. That has to be a proctored final. Okay, and if I could read a couple of comments from the chat over here. Okay, Dr. H, I'd like to review on how to adapt or change the proctored midterm in my course. That's fine. We can talk about that. And Dr. Klubal, I hope, designed the Music 1100 class and several exams require discussion questions. So that is accurate and true. And don't forget that the midterms, thank you, Dr. H, must be graded by the drop date so that students have an understanding of what their grade is going into the last day to withdraw from their courses, like the last day of midterm. And don't worry, I have a couple of things I'm going to touch on after Bob is done. So if you have more questions, please put them in the chat, and then we can talk about them then, except I see Dr. Patino's hand raised, so if you would like to either add into the chat or if you would like to ask a question, Dr. Patino, we can answer it now, especially if it happens to do with what we're talking about.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Our course has 2 proctored exams as a requirement. Now, if some of the students in the past have taken only one, and my impression always has been that no matter what their average is, if they miss one of these proctor activities, they would not be passing the class. Am I correct in that? Do the faculty determine if having the 2 proctor experiences is mandatory, or because of the regulation in eCore that they need at least one, if they miss the second, they should be able to pass if they are score essentially averages for a passing grade?
Okay, well, Bob wants to go ahead and answer that as a STEM instructor anyway. So, and I know that you teach environmental science or geology. I apologize, Dr.
Geology.
I think it's geology, yes. I'm going to go ahead and let Bob answer this, and then I will add a few points at the end, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Yes, Dr. Patino, you're going to have a midterm and a final. If you are in a class that just has one proctored exam, it's probably going to be the midterm. And so what that means is, if the student does not take that one proctored exam, the midterm, they do not pass the class, period. It also means that even though they have another big exam, the final exam, because it was not a required proctored exam, or we could call it non-proctored, this is one that you give, in GoView, they could fail that final exam. They could not show up, and you're going to assign a 0 for that. But if their average is 81, if their average is 71, then that average stands, and there's not a requirement there, and they get the grade that they earn. That has happened to me, and I want to make sure that I communicated that to you. Do you feel like you understand the situation better now? Okay, Dr. Masood, you have your video on. Ms. Patino, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I have a question. I still have a little bit of doubt. Our course had 2 proctored experiences, and we required the students to have both. Now, if they took the midterm, for example, and they choose not to take the final, my interpretation, since we are evaluating in the final exam the content from the midterm to the last portion of the semester, if they don't take the final, it is that they are missing half of, or at least a significant, important class of the portion of the class that hasn't been evaluated. So, in my view, regarding their grade, because the proctor exam is only 50%, but suppose they have everything correct in the other categories that average 83%. In my view, because they don't have the proctor experience for the second part of the class, they haven't been tested in a proctor environment on that portion, they should not be passing the class. But what I want to know is if that application of my interpretation of the policy does not go against the policy of ECOR, and I can do it, or it is not what I should be doing.
Okay, I understand your question better. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I do.
Okay. First, the rule of 1. The rule of 1 means that the student has to take one of the proctored exams. Now, since your course requires 2, they could take one of them and not the other one, and you place a 0 in there because they didn't take it. And if the student has an 83, they get a B. Student has a 71, they get a C. There's probably a host of reasons why that is the way that is, but that's how we're operating right now. And we could take your suggestion about adjusting the grade at some point in the future, because they didn't have they didn't take a test under proctored conditions, but they did take quizzes and tests in other conditions. And I guess you just got to draw a line somewhere. So that's where we're drawing the line for now. So let me review and make sure. The student needs to take one of your 2 proctored exams. And if they don't take one, the other one, they get a 0. And then whatever grade they end up with, that's the grade that, we ask that you apply to the final grade.
Okay, I think I understand it. It clarifies the idea. Thank you so much.
No problem. I apologize for not being clear the first time. All right, let's finish up. See, I told you it wasn't going to be too long. It's important that you contact us. I was talking to a communications teacher, and communication is extremely important, especially among the faculty and the ECOR staff. And that is Jody's and my responsibility on our end. And we want you to contact us. Obviously, if it's a student issue, they could call the call-in number here. But we want you to use this email at the bottom. Very important for you to contact us. And I will say a lot have, and there's been very good communication going on there. So I appreciate that.
May I have another question?
Okay, I see it.
I would like to know why the enrollment is so high. In most of the online classes, we have like 25, that's the maximum. But I'm having 37 students this semester. Why is that?
Well, I got there's 2 things, and of course Jody, she's a little bit more experienced than I am, but she could clarify anything I didn't get to. Right now we have approximately 10,370 students, and that is a lot of students. And we are applying the finest of faculty to teach these classes. And what happens is, just like in your home institution, there are some classes that are bigger than others, but what we want to do here with the students is we may be in the next couple days taking groups with large number of students and then applying some of those to the smaller classes with smaller students. So you will see some changes in the next couple of days, but it'll be done by the end of this week. So please, please be aware of that. Also, another thing is in the math, well, in whatever class, if your students are engaged students, it's not that bad that you have 30 students or whatever. But in a real classroom, you have 40 students. That is a huge undertaking, and so just kind of be mindful of that. Dr. Masood, what I would do is I would just give it a couple days, and then your concerns or questions, I want you to email us, and we will do our very best to answer your question and give you a direct answer as soon as possible. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No problem. We are here to answer questions, and that's very, very important to us. We got a chat item. People given their different views, and since the student took the midterm, he or she has a chance to pass the course. Yeah, obviously, if the student took the midterm, if the student did well in the second half and they took the final exam, we want that. We want our student to be successful. And again, I go back to math. A lot of students don't do as well as they think they do on the midterm, and then they use the rest of the course to figure out how to study better and be ready for the final exam. And that's a great thing. So we got to take the student where they are and bring them to where they need to be. That's a good statement, and I appreciate that being asked. Okay. Like I said at the bottom here, we are here to help you. I do have a couple end items I want to give, and then Dr. Jody is going to talk for a minute or two, and we'll wrap it up. As far as some end items, please email us. Please also be aware we are going to move to a new type of Blackboard conferencing like we're looking at here. It's called Blackboard Ultra, and the advantage is you don't have to download software, and I think we're going to have more participation in that. However, we don't want to just throw that out. We want to do a little training and some step-by-step scaffolding so that people are familiar with the better version of Blackboard, and that's a good thing. Also, we are honored to work with you. It is a privilege to have this opportunity to move forward in a very growing type of environment here with eCampus, and that's exciting. We also want you to know that we're working on a resource for you, which is basically it's a website, a web page, where we could give you the link and you could go look for some documents you ask about a lot, frequently asked questions, and then I want to be involved in making some videos that are related to certain tasks that we want a short video, step-by-step procedure, like setting up the gradebook or what have you. And we want to be able to have that available in a format that is easy for you to understand and easy for you to know what to do. So just be mindful of that. Also, as Jody mentioned at the beginning, this session is going to be recorded. It is finishing up now, and we're going to have a link for that, and we'll send that out on our email list so that everybody who wants to go back over it, or folks that want to hear it for the first time that weren't able to meet with us could view it, and so that's a good thing as well. All right, I'm going to stop and say thank you for taking time to listen, and let Jody finish us up.
Okay, thanks, Bob. I just wanted to finish up with a few things. I'm going to leave the recording on since this may be helpful to anybody that might listen to this a little bit later. I'm going to also wrap up with a couple of questions that some faculty have asked in the chat. Your Turnitin icon should be next to the assignment you want to use Turnitin for. In other words, it should already be in there. If you go to the assignment and if you see what looks like a ruler, it's not very easy to see, but if you look at what looks like a ruler, click the drop-down menu next to the assignment and go into Edit the Assignment folder. The last tab on the right will be the Turnitin folder and tab, and will allow you to alter that as you need. Okay, Planet of eCore is a blog, but this is mostly, it's supposed to be student-friendly. It is a lot of tips and ideas for the students. You're welcome to look at it as well, but this is something that is supposed to give students some ideas about how to be successful. I wanted to remind everyone that eCore and eMajor have different MOUs, as well as the fact that I understand some some eMajor programs don't use the same MOU between the programs. So don't worry. You absolutely will know about your MOU. You have to have one signed before you start working or anything anyway. So the MOU for eCore is more detailed, and that's mostly what we're referring to. Okay, I know that I already mentioned, once again, remember that eMajor does not require a proctored exam, so please don't worry about that. When in doubt, particularly with Dr. Patino, what she was asking, when in doubt, check with your syllabus. Whatever is in your gradebook, whatever your requirements are, have got to be stated in the syllabus. I completely understand what you're saying, Dr. Patino. I had the same experience myself. What you absolutely can do is 100% require the midterm and the final, and only require one of those to be proctored. And you could actually, if you want to make the midterm proctored and the student misses the midterm, for example, you can allow the final to be proctored. And I see what you're saying about those, the section of the class that is not assessed will remain unassessed that way. But typically only the one proctored experience is required. We can ask about that. So if you'd like to email us, we can take that to your instructional designer and ask if it's possible for you to require 2 proctored exams as well. Okay, next really quickly, okay, is the question about the music class being full. Actually, that is a full class, but the 35 students in the online class is actually considered a full class, not 25. Also, I'm willing to believe that music is filling up so quickly because it is a brand new class, and we only have, I think, about 4 professors right now teaching it. So I think there's probably some newness there that is attractive to some of the students enrolling in classes. And Dr. Klubal, if you'd like to add.
Good. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Question in Smart Proctoring, there's a listening portion on the midterm for the midterm test where they have to listen to music.
Yes,
and
sir.
For permitted items, there's a place that says earplugs, but I think there should be something that says earphones.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to be listening in a testing center, and I know they have to identify some music by the way it sounds, but that's not an option. I added it into my little information, about the test that they need to bring earbuds.
Okay. Have you spoken with Robert from eTesting?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I just put it in my class, but I haven't.
Okay. Perfect. He does all things concerned with proctored exams. His name is Robert Carswell. If you would like to email us, we can forward this directly to him, or eTesting, all one word, lowercase, at westga.edu.
All right, eTesting at, what's the last one?
westga,
okay.
all one word, lowercase, .edu.
Okay, I'll email them in just a minute, because I noticed that the students, some testing centers do not want you to play music while other students are taking other tests.
Right, makes sense. But there's got to be a solution. If we're offering this class, they need their listening portion. You're absolutely correct.
Just earbuds is all they need.
Yeah, we need to accommodate them. You're absolutely correct. I don't know what the answer is, but let's find out for you.
Okay, yeah, and I put that actually listed. They could use earbuds if there's an issue.
Okay, perfect. Like I said, I don't know what the answer is, but we must accommodate them. So I'm interested to hear the answer myself as well.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, Dr. Patino, if we are moving forward into a new Blackboard platform, is it worth the work to prepare a new Collaborate segment for the students? You are welcome to use the existing Blackboard Collaborate version that you have. Blackboard Ultra is out, but we have to do a good deal of preparing on our end as well. I'll be happy to notify you if Ultra is going to be imported into the classes anytime soon. I don't believe so, and we won't leave you hanging. We won't do something without notifying you and making sure that everyone is aware. But we will definitely find out more about this. Okay, wonderful. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.